Hello Pokemon trainers and welcome to Pokemon Community Game Toolkit. In this video series I'm going to look at some of the most popular Pokemon in PCG and explain why they're popular, what they can do, how they fit into a team, and how you can beat them. This video assumes you're already familiar with the Pokemon Community Game Twitch extension, but if you're not then there will be a link in the description below to the Twitch game and to the Discord where the community can hang out. My name is 4Dragons, this lovely lady is Imperia. Now let's get into the video. And what better place to begin this series than with Umbreon the Moonlight Pokemon. Umbreon is one of the most popular Pokemon in PCG, and with good reason. The cool but cute exterior of this Pokemon hides an absolute master of both attack and defense, capable of handling a variety of common threats and coming out on top of almost any situation. Now let's look a little closer and see what makes Umbreon work. In PCG there are no abilities, so Synchronize and Inner Focus are not relevant. Looking at Umbreon's stats, it's very clear that this Pokemon is a tank. Just like all evolutions, Umbreon can choose where to put a stat of 130, and Umbreon chooses its special defense. It follows up by choosing to put its 110 in defense, and finishes by putting its 95 in HP. Like all evolutions, its remaining stats are an unimpressive 60 to 65. This gives Umbreon a respectable base stat total of 520, and 335 of those points have been invested in its defenses. Umbreon's Mono Dark type comes with no double weaknesses, meaning that even super effective coverage moves will struggle to one-shot it unless they are extremely powerful moves like Close Combat. Umbreon has very few resistances, resisting only fellow Dark types and being immune to Psychic. On a lesser Pokemon, this would be a problem, as many Pokemon rely on resisting moves in order to perform their job as a tank. But Umbreon is such a defensive powerhouse that all this means is that Umbreon can handle the entire non-super effective world equally well. This adorable little tank doesn't care if the opponent is coming in with water, grass, fire, flying, rock, ice, or any other type. It can handle the hit from just about everything. What this means is that Umbreon has a few really great matchups, an enormous number of good matchups, and just a few terrible matchups. So what are some things an Umbreon can do to set the scene for just how much this mysterious Pokemon can accomplish? An Umbreon with a nature that invests in physical defense can survive insane punishment, including a critical hit Crab Hammer from a Gyarados, 2 turns of Dragon Darts from a Dragapult, that's 4 hits in total, and even an Earthquake from a Garchomp or an Exaggeration. On the special defense side, Umbreon can survive 1 super effective fairy move from most opponents, 2 flamethrowers from a Chandelure, and 3 or more of just about anything that Seismitoad, Kingdra, or Lapras might throw at it. Now it's clear that Umbreon can take a lot of hits, and both takes neutral damage and gives neutral damage to most Pokemon in the game. But with a stat line like that, some people may be asking where this so-called mastery of attack comes from. Well, the answer comes in the form of a single move, and that move is Foul Play. With 95 power and 100% accuracy, this is already a move that most PCG Pokemon would be happy to get, but the real power of this move comes from the fact that it uses the opponent's attack stat in place of your own. Umbreon doesn't need any attack of its own, and can even afford to have an attack subtracting nature, because this move is its bread and butter. Foul Play one-shots Metagross and Dragapult, as well as many other Pokemon which have a type weakness to Dark. It also 2-shots Gyarados and Garchomp, both Pokemon which will typically 3-shot Umbreon even with their strongest moves, allowing Umbreon to reliably beat them. It even 3 to 4 shots the dreaded Lapras, whose surprisingly high 85 physical attack stack suddenly becomes a huge weakness that allows Umbreon to chew through large amounts of its health pool with little risk to itself. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Foul Play is the entire reason why Umbreon is as good as it is, and the best part is that while Foul Play is an uncommon move, it's still common enough that you can typically get it within a week of using empty discs on the Umbreon. Perhaps about 10 empty discs should be enough to get you a Foul Play if your luck is average. Umbreon's 65 base speed stat is far from impressive, but it does allow it to outrun some Lapras, the majority of Metagross, and with a high enough speed IV, even the 71 base speed Tyrantrum is within reach for an Umbreon. There are many bruisers who Umbreon will outspeed, and the punishment for being outsped by Umbreon is severe. The absolute upper limit for a fantastic speed IV Umbreon with a plus speed nature would be having a chance to outspeed the 81 base speed Gyarados, as long as the Gyarados' speed IV is average or lower. Don't count on this to happen, but if it ever did, the Gyarados is going to have an extremely bad time. So what does an ideal Umbreon look like? What is the biggest, baddest, and most impressive Umbreon that you could find in the toolbox of a high-level PCG player? I personally like to invest in a physically defensive nature for my Umbreon, bringing its defensive stats to about equal, but any nature which drops its attack or special attack and raises its defense or special defense are all acceptable. IVs are the same, with physical defense, special defense, and HP being the top priority. Everything aside from foul play is frankly just icing on the cake. If you don't get foul play, then you need to pretend to have foul play. Never reveal both of your dark type moves unless one of them is foul play. Umbreon really likes this move. For the normal type slot, it would be nice to have a status afflicting move, or a move with a chance to inflict a status condition. In my opinion, Glare is the strongest option here, while Body Slam does the same thing but is less reliable with only a 30% chance of paralysis. Lovely Kiss is also crippling to an enemy Pokemon with a 75% accuracy and inflicting the sleep condition. Teeter Dance and Dizzy Punch inflict the confusion condition. Teeter Dance is 100% accurate, Dizzy Punch only has a chance of inflicting confusion, but both are still acceptable. If status conditions are not a big part of your strategy, then the ideal choices are Super Fang and Horn Drill. You'll see that the theme here is using moves which ignore Umbreon's attacking stats, and moves which benefit from the long-term survival which Umbreon is often capable of, as well as its ability to force enemies to switch to their Fairy-type Pokemon. Screech is also acceptable, as it will lower the defenses of the enemy Pokemon and make them more vulnerable to foul play, or soften them up for your next Pokemon to take them out. When it comes to healing options, Umbreon has several normal type moves to choose from, like all Pokemon do. Sadly, it can no longer get Moonlight due to Moonlight being a fairy move, so Morning Sun will have to take the top spot for being thematic and appropriate. Outside of its normal type slot, Umbreon gets additional healing from Heal Order, the bug type coverage move. This is also a good option. Umbreon can also get Pain Split, however with its 95 base HP, Pain Split may not be the optimal choice for Umbreon, and while I'm not as big of a fan of Pain Split as I am of pure healing moves on Umbreon, it is very useful for defeating Lapras, whose gigantic HP pool will allow Umbreon to heal a great deal off of it. An honourable mention goes to Baton Pass. Umbreon can create a fairly impressive Baton Pass set. Dark-type gives it access to the ever-useful Nasty Plot to sharply increase its special attack stat, and Hone Claws, which increases its attack and accuracy by 1. It can even get Omni Boosts from Ancient Power or Silver Wind in its coverage slot. It can get Rock Polish to sharply raise its speed, and can even get triple stat boosts from a single turn by using the Bug-type Tail Glow to raise its special attack by 3, as well as Quiver Dance, which is excellent for a special attack sweeper, or Coil, which is excellent for a physical bruiser. The Dark type slot is much simpler than the normal type slot. There are only a few very good options aside from foul play. You can be happy with Snarl for lowering the enemy's special attack. Feint Attack and False Surrender let you ignore accuracy drops if the enemy is using Double Team or Octazooka. And you can have Sucker Punch for priority. Punishment is also an option if the enemy Pokemon is trying to increase its stats, or if they're a user of Ancient Power, Silver Wind, Ominous Wind, or so on, and they happen to get the Omni Boost. Flatter does the same thing as Teeter Dance, inflicting confusion, and is also a good option. Dark-type move slots are really just double the chances to get foul play, and foul play is always the go-to choice of move, but these moves can help in rare situations. The coverage slot is also pretty simple. Along with all the moves we've discussed before, Toxic is always a good choice, Nightshade is an option for reliable damage, and Rock Tomb hits Togekiss for super effective and slows down enemies, while Acid Spray does the same and lowers enemy special defense. For straight up attacking moves, Gunk Shot is the only real option with the sheer power to damage most fairy types, but any poison attacking move is okay since Umbreon's physical attack and special attack are equally average. There are many other moves which are okay on Umbreon, but these are the standout choices and the sorts of moves that you should be wary of the enemy Umbreon having if you're willing to be prepared for the worst case scenario. To get an idea of just how good foul play is, we can compare Umbreon's usefulness to another one of my favourite Pokemon, the indestructible ducky, Cresselia. Cresselia also gets access to healing and status moves, and has higher stats across the board than Umbreon, but even before Ranked was restricted to one Pokemon of 600 BST, Umbreon was by far the more popular choice. Foul play is what makes Umbreon ascend beyond the realms of mere tanks, to become a deceptively powerful bruiser far beyond what its stats would first suggest. So now we know roughly what the perfect Umbreon looks like, and what it is capable of doing on the attack and defense side of things. So the next question is, how do we beat it? Do we know that? I don't know if we know that. Fairy types and fighting types are the obvious answer. While Umbreon status moves can cost them a lot to switch into, many Umbreons will only have Foul Play, and will be easy pickings for the Pokemon which resist that move and have super effective moves of their own. Togekiss, Machamp, Lucario, Florges. These Pokemon all take down Umbreon or force it to switch out, and are the go-to choices that most people will switch in against an Umbreon the moment they see it. The dreaded Ghost Fighting type Marshadow can also go toe-to-toe against an Umbreon, as even turning its 125 attack stat back against itself is not quite enough for Umbreon to one-shot the Marshadow. But there is one Pokemon which stands above all these others as the ideal Umbreon counter, and that is Magnezone. Magnezone comes equipped with a heavily lopsided attack and defense ratio, with only 70 attack but 115 defense, and often takes a negative attack nature as well. This makes Foul Play much weaker. Umbreon can still break through it in 4 or 5 turns, but all of Umbreon's additional tricks like Paralysis and Poison are useless against Magnezone, who is immune to both of those status conditions. A Fairy Pokemon, combined with a Magnezone, is a popular core which Umbreon will have an extremely hard time breaking through. The following types can have coverage moves which are super effective against Umbreon. Normal type, Fire type, and Flying type all get the Fighting type coverage. Ghost, Poison, and Grass all get Bug type coverage, and Electric, Psychic, and Ice all get Fairy type coverage. It is not a guarantee that any of these Pokemon will have those coverage moves, but it is something to be wary of and to try and bait out so that you can know what the Pokemon's coverage move is before you commit Umbreon to the fight. So the way to beat Umbreon is to neutralize its Foul Play through Pokemon which resist it, or which have much higher defense than they do attack. High powered moves and status conditions are also good for taking chunks out of its considerable bulk. Umbreon is an extraordinary Pokemon who can fit into a huge variety of teams. It makes an excellent designated counter to Dragapult and Metagross, and is one of the only counters to those Pokemon which can actually switch into them and take a hit, sending them running for cover while the rest of your team has a chance to do its thing. It also handles Garchomp, Weavile, Gyarados, and other sweepers, allowing you to get the fight back under control at the pace you want. On top of its role as a counter to sweepers and setup Pokemon, Umbreon can be sacrificed to trade 1-for-1 against nearly any Pokemon in the game, meaning you can use it as a targeted removal against a particular enemy Pokemon that super affects most of your team, if you think you can handle the 5v5 battle once Umbreon and that Pokemon have knocked each other out. It can also work as a pivot, giving your more fragile Pokemon chances to be switched out of bad matchups while Umbreon steps in to take the hits. You can switch out 4 or 5 times to an Umbreon, or as many as 10 or 20 if the Umbreon has a healing move as well. The Pokemon which support Umbreon to do its job are Pokemon who cover its weaknesses. Salazzle can take out most Fairy types and Magnezone, and even resists Fighting types if you need to switch Umbreon out and have no other Pokemon to take the hit. Chandelure is excellent for the same reason, and resists every single one of Umbreon's weaknesses. Crobat and Togekiss are excellent options too, as they quad resist Fighting type attacks and are strong Pokemon in their own right. Umbreon is able to shine as a powerful team member when it is backed up by anti-Fairy Pokemon with high attacking power, or fellow status inflictors and stall Pokemon. The Pokemon which Umbreon can be used most effectively to support are Pokemon who are strong threats, but who have easy to target super effective move weaknesses. Umbreon can back up many Pokemon with ×4 weaknesses like Gyarados, Salazzle, Magnezone, Seismitoad, and Ferrothorn. When people are about to use a ×4 effective move on those Pokemon, Umbreon can step in to take the hit and handle the enemy Pokemon which scared away your previous Pokemon. Okay, let's suppose that Umbreon has refused to get in the ball. You don't have an Umbreon, or your Umbreon is terrible. What are some other options you can use instead? Firstly, Umbreon is kind of the budget option for itself. It is the only Mono Dark type tank, meaning that it is the most likely Pokemon in the game to get Foul Play along with other Mono Dark types, while also being one of Foul Play's best users. But if you're really looking for other Foul Play users that fit Umbreon's role, I do have a few to suggest. Top of the list is Mandibuzz. This flying brick comes with a very similar looking stat lineup, and even brings enough additional speed to have a good chance of outspeeding Gyarados. It can't take quite as many hits, but it's no pushover either. It gets all the same moves as Umbreon, as well as flying type moves, where you can look at damaging moves or at status options like Feather Dance, and its coverage list expands to include Steel type attacks and Ground type attacks, which can both be helpful for dealing with Umbreon counters. Be aware that just like Umbreon, this Pokemon is a bit of a one-trick pony when it comes to damage. Foul Play is always the star of the show. Mandibuzz neutralises Umbreon's weakness to fighting and bug, and adds an immunity to ground that your team might dearly need, but does bring new weaknesses to the common attacking types of Rock, Electric and Ice. Use it at your own risk. There are a few other Pokemon which can learn Foul Play and potentially get some use out of it, but remember, a non-stab Foul Play is not guaranteed to one-shot a Dragapult. Hippowdon, Mudsdale and other bulky ground types can get Foul Play as a coverage move and make good use of it, while supplementing their Foul Play use with ground moves like Earthquake. This does cost them their coverage slot, but if you happen to get Foul Play on these Pokemon or are desperate for a ground type, it is something to consider. The extremely defensive-oriented Dusclops, and also pretty defensive Dusknoir, get Foul Play as an option, and they can really appreciate having it in order to take out other ghost types, while also being strong enough to take a hit from a Dragapult, who will likely not expect them to be able to hit back hard with Foul Play in revenge. Lastly, I'd like to give honourable mentions to Shuckle for being the Pokemon who will most often improve its horrible attack stat by using Foul Play, and Ninjask for being the fastest Pokemon to get the move. Overall, I would most highly recommend Umbreon. It's among the strongest Pokemon on this list, and it has the highest chance of learning Foul Play out of any of them. But Mandibuzz is a close second for its good speed, and it's perfect if you're a gym leader wishing you could have a reliable bruiser tank like Umbreon on your all-flying team. They say that when all you have is a hammer, the whole world starts to look like a nail. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be a bad thing when they say it, but with Umbreon, I think otherwise. Umbreon is the finest hammer around. It is a blunt instrument which hits Pokemon by using their own strength against them. It also has a slightly less useful side of status conditions and weakening moves to represent the prongs on the back of the hammer. Just like a hammer, Umbreon can be used for just about anything. It sticks around for a long time and can take plenty of damage while continuing to do its job. It can save your other tools from getting worn out, and when everything is lined up and there is a nail or a Dragapult that needs to be flattened, Umbreon will be there and eager to do the job. If you could only pick one tool to have, you could do a lot worse than picking a hammer.